Okay. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. We'll begin our agenda with Scott's administrative report, which will include an update on Lake Dishroon, and our business segment only includes one agenda item, which is recommending a change in the dates for the future schedule of work sessions and board meetings. Scott?
Thank you, Candace. Tim and Justin, are we okay with audio and visual right now?
It's a beautiful day in Big Canoe. We're ready to roll.
Perfect. Let's go to the first slide. Who is that guy?
Who is it?
Who is that handsome young man? I don't know. I don't know anymore who that guy is. Actually, that was taken in 1974 as I went into middle school. And the reason I'm showing you that is because you can get an idea of how long ago 1974 really was, which seems like another whole lifetime ago. And the reason that that's relevant is we're going to talk about Lake Dishroon Dam. So if you go to the next slide, although I hate to leave that one, it brings back like all kinds of memories. At the same time that picture was being taken, this picture was being taken. So this is 1974 in Lake Dishroon. Over to the right, you see the swim club being built, and you see nothing for Laurel Ridge except a bunch of trees. And that is what the stream bed of Lake Dishroon, soon to be Lake Dishroon, looked like at the time that picture was taken of me in Baltimore in 1974. And what you see there is that is the stream as it normally flows through the bottom of the reservoir before we created the reservoir. And that concrete structure you see on the left is the discharge tower, which has a sluice gate. We talk a lot about sluice gates here lately. There's a sluice gate at the bottom of that one too. And then a discharge pipe that runs from the sluice gate and goes through the dam. And that's going to be really relevant to the next couple things we talk about. So next slide for me, please. That's a closer view in 1974. So again, you can see all the water coming and the stream just disappears. And the reason the stream is disappearing is it's going through the sluice gate, through a discharge pipe, through the dam, and then out into what would become the infamous Big Canoe rock slide. Next slide. Just for fun, that was taken a little bit later. That is actually what the beach club used to look like before kids knew what inflatables were. You climbed up a tower on wooden steps and you went down a slide, and that was all the fun in the world because there were no cell phones, there was no internet, and that's what we used to do for fun. I would have personally, when that picture was taken, I would have thought I was in heaven if I was going down that little slide. So that's what the world used to be like. It's kind of fun to look back. Next slide. So this was taken Monday. Things look a little different. So you can see that same creek bed going through the bottom of what used to be Lake Dishroon. And this is how the beach looks after you drain all the water out of Lake Dishroon. And what you'll see behind the picture of that big cat bulldozer, you'll see kind of a cliff of sediment. And that is about 4 to 6 feet of deposited silt, which has built up as that original picture aged into this handsome guy you've got now. That's what was depositing over the last almost 50 years in the bottom of Lake Dishroon. So when we drained the lake, that's what was there. And then unfortunately, Mother Nature didn't cooperate and decided to dump 6.5 inches of rain over 2 weeks into our lake, which then caused that little river there to carve out a huge amount of silt, which unfortunately went through our discharge pipe, did damage to the discharge pipe, and deposited itself squarely into Lake Sconti, which sets up the situation we're now in. Next slide. So here's another picture. This was taken a little later, evening of the same day. So again, you see all of the silt and what became damaged area behind the sluice gate over there to the left. So all the water, all the silt went through the damaged pipe, through the dam, and into Lake Sconti. So for many people who've been sending me questions about, What are the golf course people doing? They obviously don't know what they're doing. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I thought we had a good contractor, all those things. We do. And none of that silt is due to anything about the golf course renovation. The timing just happens to coincide at the same time. This was due to maintenance work that we knew we needed to do in this area of the swim dock down here, and also removing those old rotted piers that used to tie to that beautiful little slide that we showed pictures of. So all of that work needed to be done. It was planned to be done before we opened for the summer, and unfortunately, things went wrong from there. Next slide. So again, closer picture of that same tower. There's a crank at the top. There's a threaded mechanism that goes down to the bottom that opens up a sluice gate, which we'll show you later. And the failure happened actually on the back side of that tower. Next slide. Here you can see us building a cofferdam. So that is the rock structure that's sitting in the middle of the stream Dishroon. And first thing I would say, it has amazed everybody the amount of water flow that moves through Dishroon, which kind of explains why the rock slide is never dry. Even in the middle of the summer, kids are always having fun on the rock slide. There's a lot of water that goes through this area. More water goes through Dishroon, we have learned, than goes through Lake Pettit. So we now, unfortunately, have to stop that water and get it out of there so that we can get in to do the repairs around that concrete tower. So the way you do that is you build a cofferdam, which is what that picture is over there. And next slide. You then bring in a lot of pumps. And so that is 4 pumps that are taking water from behind the cofferdam and running it through all those discharge lines, which kind of look like spaghetti at that point. And it takes it up and over the dam, down the other side, and into the splash pool for the rock slide. Next slide. And there you see at the same time, we have a similar problem in that once you get the water out, which you can see it much lower there, but it's not all the way out, you need to build a road because all of that sediment was kind of like quicksand or black pudding. After that 6.5 inches of rain, you couldn't walk across that, let alone take a caterpillar or a truck or anything else. So we've actually had to build a road. So while we've been working on the cofferdam upstream and getting the water out downstream, we have also been having to build a road so that we can get in to where the pipe damage actually happened. And just for fun, the developer didn't do us any favors because they decided to build this whole Laurel Ridge complex right on the back side of the swim club. Therefore, there's little to no access to get any equipment into this area. So unfortunately, they didn't do us any favors. I think they should have left an access road, but I wasn't here. They didn't ask me. So I wish we had it, but we don't. So it's been a bit of a struggle. Next slide. Here you go again. And by the way, equipment like this doesn't come easy and doesn't come cheap. We certainly don't have equipment like this on hand. And given the amount of construction that's happening now in the decreased COVID environment, it's taken a lot of work from Jason to get his hands on this kind of equipment that can reach far enough into the area to build the road so you're not sinking in quicksand while you're doing it. Next slide. Again, the pump lines running up from the area up and over the dam. You can kind of see footprints there, so you get an idea of what the guys have been dealing with. Next. This is at the rock slide. So here's the downstream side and all of the water that we're taking out. And unfortunately, see the color of that water, the river continues to cut through that silt until it gets down to bedrock. So the water's getting cleaner, but it's not clean. So unfortunately, more silt continues to go into Lake Sconti, and that's another problem that we're going to be having to mitigate here shortly. Next slide. Again, more pictures of the guys building a rock road. The other thing about a post-COVID environment, as Matthew Parks told me the other day in the middle of a landscaping project, he said, Scott, I can't even get plants anymore. Can't get anything, can't get any kind of materials, couldn't get the rock. So all of the places that we normally call up and say, hey, we need some rock, and it shows up, it's been a little slower than it normally is. So everybody is being impacted by the hiring problems and all the health issues associated with COVID. So it's taken a little longer to get the rock, but there it is being built. Next slide. And again, just another view of a lot of guys trying to get water out and to try to inspect. At that point, we've got the water down to the point you can begin to see the top of the damaged pipe. Next slide. That is the front side. So when we talk about sluice gates, and we've been talking about sluice gates for a long, long time, that's what a sluice gate looks like. So that's called a trash rack that sits in front of it. That's to keep logs and stuff like that out of going through the sluice gate and going through the pipe, which works really well unless your pipe fails, in which case everything goes through it anyway, which is kind of the mode we've been in. So that is the sluice gate. It works just fine. And it is, in that picture, it's actually fully open. The problem is because of all that sediment and the pipe that failed behind it, no water was flowing through it. So not a problem with the sluice gate, problem with the pipe. Next. This is a little audio track, I think. So you can see behind the tower, there's spinning water. And that's kind of like a bathtub drain that shouldn't be there. And the reason is you can see the pipe. That's the top of a 50-year-old corrugated metal pipe running along there. And right there, there's a really big hole in the top of it. That was never meant to be there and was the first point of failure of the corrugated metal pipe. And when we talk about a pipe, that is the same material. You may recall when we were doing the Creek 9 presentations and things of that nature, Lydell would hold up pictures of the corrugated pipe, same material. And if they failed on the golf course, they're failing here too, or it's failing here too. So that is that's the problem, and that's what we're going to need to further assess and to repair. So the problem is not with the tower, it's not with the trash rack, it's not with the sluice gate, it's with that pipe. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Yeah, that's a terrible sound. We don't want to hear that anymore. That's pumps running 24/7. It's great. Just another view of the. That's what the pumps sound like as the water goes across the top of the dam through the hoses. So all of that water is now being evacuated by 4 pumps. And what all that means to us is we are at the stage where it's taken us a week of incredible engineering and public works work to just get to the point where we can get down to the pipe and for the first time start to run cameras inside it. We'll find the hole, see what's actually happening, assess the damage, figure out how extensive the damage is, and then working with Geosyntec to put together a plan on how we repair, replace, bypass, lots of different scenarios being talked about on how to permanently fix that problem. And the other issue we have is those permanent fixes will not be quick or inexpensive, honestly. And so we can't depend on 4 pumps running 24/7 for what could be several months more of work because pumps are not that reliable to do that. So that's causing also further engineering work to probably design a siphon system that's going to replace those pumps so the pumps become supplemental, and then we can make sure we get all the water out of that basin constantly so that then we can get in there and do the repair work. So what sounds so simple at the beginning, that we have a corrugated metal pipe with a hole in it, is a very, very complicated engineering project due to the location of where all that's happening and all of the silt and the access problems that we have to manage in that area. So that's kind of what's going on there. There's been a few questions and answers, or questions that I'll give you the answers to, just to make sure everybody's hearing the same thing that I'm doing on Ask the POA. So people are asking me, how much is this going to cost? And I would say, in all truthfulness, we don't know yet. Until we can totally clear out that water and get in there and totally assess the condition of that pipe, and then Geosyntec will have engineering time to figure out what the permanent solution is, and then we need to build the permanent solution. We're not sure. The good news is, as I've said at finance meetings and things like this, the POA planned for this day. So that is why we established years ago a $2.8 million emergency fund for roads, bridges, and dams. And we can take money out of that without borrowing from any outside institution. It's not money that was earmarked for some other project, so nothing has to stop, or no maintenance stops, or we don't stop paving roads or something like that. This is money that was earmarked for roads, bridges, and dam emergencies, and this qualifies. And so therefore we can take the money and then we pay it back within 3 years. And we have plenty of cash flow, as I always talk about, to be able to do that. So it's not a financial, huge concern. I'm much more worried about getting the solution right and making sure that we set this up for the next 50 years of the dam life. So in 10 years, we're not back saying, why did those guys just patch that pipe or something? No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do it right. So that's question one. Question two, people ask me is, so what does this mean to the swim club? I would tell you in all transparency that my target date is to open the beach on July 4th. And that means we have a lake back on July 4th. I don't know yet whether that is a 50% probability or a 90% probability. I won't know for a few more weeks, but that to me is the earliest that we can hope for to reopen the beach. Now, we're making plans about the pool can still be open, maybe a part of the beach can be open. Steve, Robert, public safety, we're starting to work through all of those different scenarios, but I can't have inflatables in Lake Dishroon if I don't have Lake Dishroon. So July 4th is the earliest that I would say. And the other question I get a lot, and I see lots of misinformation about that running around in the community about Lake Pettit. Oh my gosh, this is going to happen to Lake Pettit. Oh my gosh, the same thing. Oh my gosh, it's so much deeper. We'll have to excavate the whole dam. No, 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 no. Lake Pettit is a whole different design. So there is a sluice gate. And like I said, the sluice gate works fine in Dishroon. Like we told you earlier in the year, we inspected the Lake Pettit gate as well, and that appeared to be in good shape. Fortunately, the guys who designed Lake Pettit did it the right way, and it is a concrete conduit 36 inches wide that goes through that whole dam that we thoroughly inspected with a top-notch camera crew that spent 3 days of inspection doing that. And there's nothing internal to that conduit that's like seeping water, cracks, anything of that nature. So the fundamental problem is we had a 48-year-old corrugated metal pipe. And why in the world you would put corrugated metal pipe going through a dam? It's because it was cheap, and it shouldn't have been done in 1974, but it was done. So, unfortunately, we have some old infrastructure here that we're catching up on. And as we talked about in our hour-and-a-half dam town hall that we did, which is still available, you can check it out on YouTube, it's still there. That is our 5-year master plan for Lake Pettit. And the things that are happening here just reinforce the fact that we need a 5.5-year, we need a 5-year master plan for Lake Pettit. We need to get after some of the things that are older systems in Lake Pettit, but the problems we're seeing here are not going to be replicated, in that other dam. It's built totally differently. One is a class 1 dam based on the amount of water it holds back and based on the risk of any kind of a downstream issue. And the other is a class 2 dam, which is why they cheaped out when they built it, because it was smaller and a smaller reservoir, so they didn't need to build it as well. So that's why they use corrugated metal pipe. So that's the dam update for today. We will be updating in our Inside the Gates, Inside the Inbox. We'll be sending out updates weekly to the community and keeping up to date on what we know about the swim club, what we know about finances, what we know about progress. So it's become the place to be on an afternoon. People are lining up chairs along the swim club balcony. We might have to start serving refreshment out there and as it gets hotter, but lots of people are watching what's going on. So anyway, that's the dam update for today. Next topic I wanted to talk about is COVID-19. And there's a lot of good news here. A lot of good news in number one, I don't have any way to know this, but from everything I hear and everybody I talk to and everybody in meetings, many of the folks here are now at least, one vaccine into the cycle, which is great. The governor issued a new executive order, which is in what we're going to show you here in a minute. And just to let you know the process, whenever this happens, these things are 70-some pages long. We basically get the Director of Public Safety, Chief Ricky, myself, our Director of Amenities, and we pour through this thing line by line with highlighters. And our philosophy has been that everything that they are relaxing, we're trying to relax with them. There's still some things we can't do. And that's what I want to show you here. So next slide. So the first thing is, unfortunately, despite what some of the news media, and it's hard to believe that the news media would not report truth in this day and age, but some of the things the news media sent out were not true. So number one, this is from Section 1, General Provisions, and you can see that the governor of Georgia is still ordering that all residents and visitors shall practice social distancing as defined herein. So despite what you heard to the contrary, they did not eliminate the requirements of social distancing. Second thing, all residents and visitors of the state of Georgia are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings as practicable while outside their homes, except when eating, drinking, or exercising outdoors. So this one is this one's really tough because we early on decided that we were going to be more stringent than that at Big Canoe, and I think Big Canoe didn't suffer quite the same as other communities around us. Perhaps because we went a little bit on the side of conservancy on this. So what we're now doing when it comes to face covering, let's just go through it. So first of all, there is no longer any mask requirement outside of a POA building. So as you walk up to the fitness center, as you walk up to the clubhouse, nothing like that. When you go into the clubhouse, it's inside a POA building. At the moment, you're still required to wear a mask. However, you're going to be served water within a minute and a half of sitting down at your table, and some great person's going to come over and work on on taking your order. At that point, per the executive order, as you go through it, once you're eating and drinking, the mask comes off. So it's not a big inconvenience. It's really not. Your mask is going to come off pretty quickly once you're inside. In the marina, you're not going into the shack. John is meeting at the door, confirming your reservation, stuff like that. You don't need to wear a mask while you're approaching the marina. You don't need to wear a mask while you're on a boat. Kind of the same as it was in 2018 when I got here. Let's see, go through the fitness center. As you all know, we started doing mask optional days at the fitness center. Those are being well received, but I would also tell you, there is still a lot of folks that just do not feel comfortable yet exercising in the fitness center without a mask. Steve is continually checking the pulse of the community that comes in there. And so he and I were talking this afternoon. What you're going to see over the next few weeks is probably a shift as the demand grows for exercising without a mask. You will get more people, more days where you'll be able to do that, more time slots where you'll be able to do that, where it will be mask optional. There are still days that are going to be mask required because there are a bunch of folks here who just aren't ready yet. Maybe they're on shot number 1, not on shot number 2. They're just not quite ready yet to go to exercising with no mask. So we're trying to make sure that, you know, we treat everybody here with respect and courtesy. We got to make sure that all residents feel comfortable using our facilities. So again, that feels a lot to me like 2018. I could go to the fitness center and exercise without a mask. And if you're not comfortable, then there's other days you can go to the fitness center and exercise with a mask. So that's kind of okay. That's really where we are. You know, racquetball, tennis, when you're outside, you're playing without a mask. Again, feels a lot like 2018 to me when I played pickleball. Not a lot of things happening there that are, I think, overly restrictive. So that's kind of where we are. We're relaxing and following the governor's orders, still not quite at the mask optional stage, but I would tell you the board and I are evaluating that constantly. And as things change here with the executive order, we're going to be changing right with it. Next slide. Fitness center, again, we talked about this. This is right out of the executive order. So they're still requiring, this is legal requirements. This is not Scott deciding what we can and can't do. I still have to maintain 6 feet of distance when patrons are participating in fitness classes. I've got to space the equipment, so that limits the amount of people we can put in there at a given time. These are legal requirements from the state of Georgia, not choices that we're making. And again, he's using words like enforced social distancing and prohibiting congregating. So again, not POA policy. This is coming from the governor. We sit there with the highlighter and figure this stuff out. Next slide. And last but not least, restaurant provision. So I know, believe me, I used to be out there. I like it. I like parties on the veranda. It's fun. I really enjoy them. Unfortunately, in the executive order on page 13, I think, if I remember correctly, it says I cannot provide service to non-seated patrons, providing service only to seated patrons or to patrons in designated areas that are practicing social distancing. So unfortunately, right now, today, legally, I cannot move all the tables aside on the veranda, put a band at one end, and have Kennedy walking around and taking your drink orders. I'm not legally able to do that. And people say to me, Scott, wait, hold it. I was somewhere this weekend. I was there. And I'm like, you know, my mom taught me when I was that picture you saw, my mom used to teach me, Scott, just because they jump off the cliff, you don't have to follow them. So unfortunately, I can't control them. I can't speak to them. Legally, this is what the governor of Georgia is telling me to do. I'm going to follow legally what I'm supposed to do. However, we are totally trying to do everything we can to have more fun here. We did the Terraces concert, for example, last weekend. We had the food truck there. I met with Bob Mackey yesterday. We're planning some great events with bands and barbecue and things of that nature, where basically we can provide seating, we can serve you, there'll be music, they'll be congregating with friends. The governor did get rid of all the requirements about gatherings of 50 people. That's gone. So guess what? We are planning Oktoberfest. We are planning Mountains Twilight concert. You know, we are planning the things that we adore and love. And July 4th is coming soon. And yes, you know, if we can figure out how to deal with the golf course and fireworks, we bought the fireworks. They're coming. So, you know, we're not treating this like a, you know, like an asylum or something. That's not who we are. So luckily that requirement for gatherings went away. I can't quite do the veranda yet. As soon as I can do the veranda with the band, with drink orders to everybody, we'll do it. Next slide. This is kind of just a statistic I wanted to check so you know that I'm not making this stuff up. We look back at 2019, and if we look at February and March sales of 2019, well before we knew what the word COVID meant. It's hard to remember that time, but it's true. We're back to within 6.7% of 2019 sales. And we're profitability wise, much, much, much better shape because we're controlling our waste and we're controlling our labor costs and all of those things. Plus the food's better, plus the service is better, plus the food is hot, plus the food is consistent. But we're also sales wise getting really close to where we were in 2019. And I'm really happy to see that. Next slide. That's my Oktoberfest. So you will see that again. It's happening. It's coming. We're going to do it. So Terry and the P&E committee are reimagining and figuring out how to do a really cool, fun Oktoberfest, where people can actually now get together and mingle and have some food and have a good time. So that applies to October, and that applies to 4th of July, and that certainly applies to the Mountains Twilight concert, which are probably my favorite 3 things to do here. So it's going to happen. Next slide. And just for, there's been some confusion about weddings, and I wanted to talk about that. So way back in, this seems to be the day for time machine. So way back in the time machine of 2018, 2019, when food and beverage was really struggling from a profitability point of view, there was a strategy that was put in place at that point in time that the way to fix the profitability problem was have as many weddings and banquets and outside events as you possibly can. And economically, that's not a bad strategy. If you look at places like Biltmore House, or you look at national or state parks, or you look at many private clubs, they make a ton of money and a ton of margin on weddings and banquets. So it wasn't a bad economic strategy. The problem we have at Big Canoe is our clubhouse is designed terribly for these kind of events, because the problem is that if the bride wants to have her wedding on the right side of the lake where the beautiful view is and she can see the mountains, and the ceremony is being planned to be outside and she's going to have the reception inside, you're like, hey, what's the problem? It all sounds great. What happens if it rains? If it rains, her entire ceremony has to move to the veranda because there's no other place to put her party, and because the banquet rooms are already set for the dinner. So now you just kicked all of us out. You just kicked the property owners out. We're gone. Where are we going to go? So fundamental flaw in our design of our clubhouse. It doesn't match well with that strategy. So then the second thing is, well, let's throw them on the other side of the lake. We'll put them over in the chimneys. Couple problems with that. Number one, the chimneys can't handle the number of people that make for a very profitable wedding. That's problem number 2. Problem number 1. Problem number 2 is no parking at the chimneys. So that's a problem. Problem number 3, wait a minute, there's houses around the chimneys. So lots of traffic, lots of people, loud music. Not a good strategy, not a good place to make that your wedding venue. It does belong in the clubhouse. If it's going to be anywhere, it belongs in the clubhouse, but not the way the clubhouse is currently configured. So the problem we've inherited as a staff is that strategy was set. The weddings were aggressively sold. They were booked going into 2020. COVID came. All the weddings moved to 2021. And so now we're sitting here saying, oh my gosh, we've got these weddings. How are we going to honor our commitments? Because we don't want to see on social media that we, ruin somebody's once in a lifetime special day that's been booked and planned and deposits done and everything like that, forever. And all of a sudden we're going to say, no, we changed our minds. We don't want you here. That's not a really good thing for the reputation and the character of Big Canoe. On the other hand, I'm a property owner. I want to be able to have a nice time on Saturday night, and I want to be able to eat somewhere with Cindy. So what we're trying to do is, the good news is we are down to basically 3 closures of the clubhouse between now and October, only 3. So used to be, we would close all summer and things like that. We've managed to deal with moving things and dealing with things and all kinds of rearrangements. We're down to 3 closures of the clubhouse in the month of May, and nothing in the summertime. Those dates are May 1st, May 14th, and May 15th. We're doing a couple things. Number 1, we're providing, we went to Terry and the P&E committee and we said, get us something fun, get us somewhere else that property owners can go. So on May 1st, we have Sideburners Barbecue coming. On May 14th, we have Dominic's Wood-Fired Pizza coming. And May 15th, we don't have anybody yet, but we're working on it. So our strategy is we'll honor these. We won't be doing any more right anytime soon. And we'll provide somewhere else that the property owners can go to have a nice time that evening. Now, we do have more booked for the fall. The fall's a long time away. We're working with the amenities guys to figure out what the strategy is for October, and we'll come up with a good strategy for that. In the meantime, we have told the sales staff, thou shalt not book any weddings in 2022 that require closing the clubhouse unless it's for a property owner. So if it's a property owner's immediate family, that's still something that we'll honor. I think that's the right thing to do for our property owners. We won't be bringing outside people in to do that. And second of all, we're still planning on remodeling the chimneys, not for weddings, but for property owner meeting space. We are desperate for property owner meeting space here. So we need some more first-class meeting facilities. That's the role of the chimneys, I believe, in our community. So that's what we're working with, a group of architects and the board, and kind of getting ready to bring that eventually up for a vote and things like that. We're in the preliminary phases of that, but that is the strategy we're heading to. So that's kind of what we're doing in the short term. In the long term, we've talked a lot about a strategic planning committee. Regis has talked about that a lot. Candace has talked about that a lot. One of the questions that the strategic plan will deal with is for 2022 and beyond, what is the role of weddings and banquets in this community? The only reason it was done was either to sell houses. And last time I checked, I don't sell houses. So, there was a time that made sense when the developer was here. Doesn't make so much sense now. Plus, we don't have many houses to sell anyway. So, okay, why would you do that? Second thing is you do it because you need it. You need to make money. We're in financially good shape. Food and beverage is doing a really nice job, as I report in all the time. We make $100,000 this year on weddings and banquets. So when people say, I don't know if it makes money, it does. It makes money. It makes $100,000 of net income between the chimneys, and most of it is from the clubhouse because the weddings are bigger at the clubhouse. You make more money. So it is profitable, but $100,000, we can probably find some other ways to make up $100,000 and not have all the inconvenience associated with all those clubhouse closures and things like that. So that will be part of the strategic planning that we work on through the balance of this year. So I just wanted to let you know we're very aware, we're very sensitive. We have only a short-term problem for 3 more weddings. We've got some alternate things in place to allow us to have some fun. We'll deal with the fall. We're looking into how to deal with that. And then ultimately, the board and the strategic planning team will assess what is our correct strategy going forward with weddings. Next slide. I think I'm done. Is there any questions at all from the board? Anything that you guys have any questions about?
Scott, I have a question.
Yes, Lou.
Has there been any evaluation yet as far as all of this silt and things that you've found around Dishroon and such? Are you asking the engineers, or has there been any concerns voiced about why so much has gathered here, what's caused it? I mean, I know it's been over decades, but is it something we should address possibly in another area that would prevent it from happening here as we replace the necessary, pipe and whatever, as far as enhancing that construction?
Yeah, so we haven't looked at the original cause. And it's funny, right? There is part of the conservation team is going to be doing a presentation on water quality for the board in the upcoming weeks, and I'm really anxious to hear their recommendations. I don't know how much of that is left over from the last 40 years of development at Big Canoe. Right now, my work is how do we mitigate the immediate problem of continuing to put more silt into Lake Sconti, that's just going to cause me more and more issues down the
Exactly.
road. We've got, a golf course that right now we're effectively building a fairway on Creek 3 between the tee and the green. That was not in Bill Bergen's plan. He doesn't want a fairway there. That's supposed to be water, and it's turning into a fairway. So, we're going to need to dredge that. We're going to need to repurpose that very fertile soil. And we've been talking with Bill Bergen about how to do that. And then we need to keep it from getting into Sconti as the next few weeks go on. So that's our immediate issue, but we do need to look at long-term, the health and quality of all of our water, I think, and what we do about it.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, totally. Good question.
Hey, Scott, before we make a decision on masks, I'd like to add that we would appreciate any input from property owners regarding the decision in making a change to mask wearing from required to highly recommended over the next week.
Good.
Okay. Well, I'll move into the business agenda if there's unless there's any other questions. Okay. There's really only one topic, and that's the board recommending a change in the dates for future schedule of work sessions and board meetings. We decided that it really made sense. Well, Scott and the board decided it really made sense to combine the administrative and financial reports into one session, which really presents a more efficient overview of our operations. And then secondly, in reviewing the scope of information to present to the community during the work session, we'll recommend and vote in the monthly board meeting next Thursday to move the work sessions to a quarterly basis unless there are agenda items that arise during the month to warrant a monthly meeting. And then the recommendation will also be to move the actual monthly board meeting from the third Thursday following the first Monday of each month to the fourth Thursday to allow more time to analyze and review the financial performance of our organization. So while the monthly financial reports are made available for review just as soon as possible each month, the lead time for review by the general manager and the finance committee before the monthly board meeting is only a matter of a few days. So by moving this board meeting to the fourth Thursday, July through October, this will allow more adequate time for review. Now, this won't occur in November because of Thanksgiving. In December, we have a town hall meeting. And then lastly, any outstanding Ask the POA topics will certainly be reported monthly as trends or outstanding items are noteworthy to be discussed. So we're certainly not excluding that at all. Are there any questions?
Did you mention that we aren't going to change the board meeting date and still starting in July? Did you say that?
Yeah, I did not. I said July through October, I thought, but no,
Okay.
it will be 2 more months.
Right.
Candy, I think we should really point out and congratulate the new report that Scott's now putting out on every Thursday. That's the biggest reason why we can now change the work sessions to quarterly, because that information that is now coming out every Thursday is just outstanding. The way it's also organized as well.
That's an excellent point. And actually, that was our driver for reasons for suggesting that for the work session changes. Thank you.
I want to thank Tim Moran and Mark De La Vina for coming up with a fabulous solution of creating inside the gates, inside your inbox, because we were just killing people with too many random emails, and this forces everything to be in one place. It's like having a weekly magazine online, and I've gotten so many nice comments that people really enjoy having it all there, and you can pick and choose whatever you want to read, and it's a really good format. So thank you, Bob. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Good work.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the board or Scott, I'd like to open it up to live questions coming in, because I don't think there was anything or maybe Scott, were there any Ask the POA questions you have not already discussed that came in this past month?
There really hasn't been any single trend. It tends to be more about, this particular issue about a tree or this particular issue about something. So I think we're doing still a pretty good job of keeping up with most of those. I get I look at the screen, and when it gets longer than a page and a half of questions, I start saying, hey, don't forget to answer your questions.
Yep.
So we try to stay on top of it.
Yeah. We all look at that periodically, and I think that's, we've done a good job of keeping up with the responses in a timely manner. Okay, Tim, are there any questions that have come in?
We do have a question for you from Stacy Johnson, lot 5589. And she asked, what about a community garden to utilize the silt from the lake bed?
That is such a great question. So it's so funny that you say that, because I was talking to Jason last night, and I said, you know, that discussion we've been having with Alan De Niro about community garden, there is no better soil than this stuff when it's dried out. So actually, Alan and I were corresponding today, and I think we're maybe starting to narrow in on a potential site for this that works and meets everybody's fears and requirements and hopes and dreams. There's some administrative stuff we have to work through about property and how it's going to be governed and things like that. But in the meantime, Jason is going to get some very large drying bags, basically, so we can start, as we start to scoop out the fairway that we're building on Green 3. You want this stuff to kind of basically dry out, and clear water comes out, and then you're left with really good, rich soil that you can use in lots of different places, including maybe selling or giving away to local farmers, because they would kill for this stuff. The organic matter in there after 40 years is really good. Bill Bergen wants some of it for the golf course. He'll gladly take it once it's dry. But I think the timing with the community garden might actually be kind of good. So it's not a crazy idea, Stacy.
Can I put some around my house?
Yeah, right. We thought about that too. We might get to the point where we're saying, okay, it's open. You know, we obviously have a lot of trees that came down as well, so we may have some extra mulch this year. So
There you go.
you might be able to pick up some soil and some mulch. We'll kind of work through that. If we can, we will.
Enhance the community areas, yeah.
For sure. Tim, any other questions?
Yes, Bill Shaw from lot 404 would like access to the BC EOS plan and to learn the results of the first quarter results. I'm not sure what Bill's schedule for swim club means, but those are your two questions.
Not sure what an EOS is.
First quarter EOS.
Bill, you want to fill us in there, give us a little more information?
On the back half, he may have missed the point where I said, my goal is to reopen the swim club, which means we have to have the lake back in place on July 1st. We'll know more probably within, I think, 3 weeks, whether that is a realistic date or not. In the meantime, Steve is working with Robert on plans to certainly reopen the pool and do that safely, so we don't have kids running on the beach with construction equipment and things like that. And seeing, you know, what we can do, how much we can reopen in phases. So we're beginning to work those plans for the swim club. But if you're, you know, referring to swimming in the lake, July 4th, best case.
Okay, do we hear anything back from Bill?
Okay, Bill hasn't filled us in on that EOS. So,
Yeah, I usually know those acronyms, and that one I can't get.
I think a brain cell is kicking in here. Is that the Bobby Jones Links system, enterprise operating system? Remember the L10?
Huh.
So yeah, so I'm not sure what we would fill in there for the people in the community. I have no idea what we're talking about. One of the good things that Bobby Jones brought to us, and it was funny because I was just coaching a new employee on this today. It's called the EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Here we
And
go.
it's a great way of holding your staff meetings and holding people accountable. and you define once a quarter what you call your rocks. And these are things that at the beginning of the quarter, I sit down with my staff and we say, what are the big activities that are going to take 3 months to do? And we define those for every person. And then once a week, we meet, we go through the rocks. And it's not like your old staff meeting that we all had in corporate America. People are like, hey, you know, whatever. It's basically like, Linda, we on track with all the tennis rocks? Yep. Any issues? Okay, no. Steve, we on track at the swim club? Any issues? No. If there's an issue, then it goes into what we call the IDS. And the IDS basically is identify, discuss, and solve. And so we go right then, put it on the IDS list. We go through all the rocks, finish that. Then we go to the to-do list. And those were things from the week before that we said, these are the things that we will accomplish within the next 2 weeks. We go through, we hold people accountable, we say, have you accomplished them? Then we get to the IDS list. That's the heart of the meeting. And that's where you put the issues that came up during the rock review, or you put issues that during the week, say Robert identifies that, oh, there's something here with the amenities that I really need help from Jason and Scotty, and Jane needs to change some pricing or whatever. Instead of like calling an ad hoc meeting or sending 100 emails around, he'll put it on the IDS list. And the IDS is identify, discuss, solve. So we will then spend the majority of the meeting talking as a team, honestly, transparently, you know, all respecting each other, but really get into it and say like, okay, how do we solve this problem? That IDS thing can either get solved on the spot or it can spawn another action item, in which case it immediately goes on the action item list. So everything is kept up to date and everybody's held accountable and one person walks away with the action item. So that's just how we run my staff now, every single week. So there's not really like a report or anything like that, but it's just a system for governance, basically.
And the board has employed that at the beginning of this year, this process.
Yeah. After we learned how to use it, then we brought Bobby Jones back and said, hey, this is a great process. It works really well. Let's teach the board how to use it too. So it's good.
Okay, Tim, any other questions?
Yes, Liz Scherer, lot 2207 asks, will the floating bridge on Lake Dishroon, it serves as a bridge for the lake trail, will it be opening soon?
Yeah, I don't have a date on that, Liz. I mean, it totally depends on it's a lot like the swim club question. Depends on what we learn as we finally get down to starting to inspect, you know, what happened with that pipe and understand what the remediation is. We can then start to say, what does that mean to the trail? What does that mean to the beach? What does that mean to the lake? I don't know the answer yet. It's okay. one of the things on the list that we'll know, I think, again, within like 3 weeks. Right now, we want to keep as many people out of that area as we can. It is a major constraint. You saw the pictures. It is a major, major construction zone, and we do not want people, you know, you can't walk across the dam. You can't be out there. There's construction tape everywhere. There's unstable soil all over the place on the edges with all that silt and stuff like that. Not a safe place to be. Stay up on the swim club balcony. If you want to see it, stay up there. Please.
Okay. Any other questions, Tim?
Yes, we've got from Robert Adams, the minutes of your weekly meetings have not been posted this month. Is that too going away?
No, that's because we didn't have a meeting week before last. We had a meeting this past Monday, and those will be posted this coming Monday when they're approved.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your answers. That's all the questions we have from the audience.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Scott. And we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Yep.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Tim, Scott,
you.
everyone. Okay. Good evening.
Our pleasure.